Analytics. And now, welcome to the Analytics Podcast with your host, Laura Edel.
Did you know that the demand for data scientists is expected to grow by 28% this year? That means there are more opportunities than ever to land your dream job in this exciting field. I myself am a leader in data science and AI and have been for the last 20 years. And I find that in hiring, the recent competition, you have to be prepared in the interview loop. And I wanted to really give some advice to those of you maybe coming out of college or looking to get into the data science field on how you can impress employers that you're interviewing with. Your data science interview, especially in 2025, can catch you off guard if you're not prepared with the latest trends. First, think about things like, what is ethical AI or responsible AI? How do you navigate data bias in models? And even understand quantum computing's impact on the field around AGI. And I'll let you look up that acronym. This video really seeks to reveal those kind of questions that you need to be prepared for. And honestly, I believe if you follow some of these tips that you'll really be able to land your job. I think oftentimes candidates overthink the problem and lack just an honest presentation of themselves. And so either they focus too much on the coding practice and tests that they'll likely be given and not on the behavioral insights about themselves, or when they go technically into a deep dive or a use case scenario, it is more research based or something they learned at school as opposed to being industry based or practical in a corporate or enterprise world. And those are two very different things. So I'll repeat that. What you learn in college and research works in a research industry, or let's say if you're going into research field. When you're going into enterprise or big business, whether it's in healthcare, whether it is in, a marketing department within an e-commerce company or a traditional retailer or a manufacturer, you need to have use cases that you can break down into a business lens to really land the interview. And so some of the things to focus on in 2025 that are critical, especially the rise of generative AI and data science. You should really expect questions on prompt engineering, model fine-tuning, and what is ethical considerations need to be taken into account. So you should think about things like, demonstrate your ability to use ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, Gemini, whatever it is that's, pick your flavor, or pick specifically what you think works in one over another for the use case you're doing. So for example, reasoning has become a very large differentiator in some instances, or code generation and debugging. Is there one that you feel is better than another? And highlight that. Create visual representations in your story to really tell that complex data story. Interviewers are likely going to assess how well you understand prompt engineering by asking questions like, how would you design a prompt that would generate a synthetic data set for a machine learning task using Claude? What are some of the key factors to consider when designing prompts for generative models when you want to create visualizations using DeepSeek or Gemini? What version might you use? You never know how detailed they're going to get in their questions, but you should be prepared to answer any of them. Around the ethical considerations, remember that deploying generative AI models has a lot of bearing on responsible AI, or should at least, in terms of bias detection and mitigation in these models. And so questions like, how would you identify and address potential bias in generative AI models used to create product recommendations or facial recognition? You should be prepared to answer those questions and discuss techniques for mitigating bias, such as data augmentation, fairness metrics, and responsible model development practices. You definitely need to master the art of storytelling when it comes to the hyperscalers or the tech stacks when you're doing data science interviews. And what I mean by that, hyperscalers are Azure, AWS, GCP, or the Google Cloud Platform. How do you use them to manage your data science workloads? What's the difference between computing in the cloud versus on-premise, and why might you use one or the other? And how would you deploy to one or the other? Understand strengths and weaknesses amongst frameworks like TensorFlow and PyTorch and Hugging Face. Consider tasks like NLP or natural language processing or image recognition and why you might use one over the other. Talk about some of the features and capabilities of GPT and Claude and DeepSeek specifically around synthetic data creation, data-driven reports and visualizations, and how you can visualize data relationships. Those always land really well. And lastly, discuss the pros and cons of big data technologies that underpin all the best AI models and how these massive data sets need to be able to perform efficiently for these machine learning tasks and what tools you might use, like potentially MongoDB or Spark, Databricks. You should absolutely understand and highlight the value from a business perspective, as I said earlier in the interview. Talk about practical applications. So maybe pick an industry like finance and talk about how synthetic financial data for risk modeling, fraud detection, and portfolio optimization can be used, but ensuring data privacy and confidentiality that comes with a synthetic data set, you have to make sure is free of bias and is not skewed when you create it. You need to test it and make sure that it's valid and discuss how this real world case study, if you were to create it even on the fly, might you approach it? More times than not in an interview, we don't want you to have the perfect answer. We want to hear how you're thinking. What is your thought process to get to the answer that we've asked? And sometimes I'll watch folks just really try to get the perfect scenario out there and they might ramble a little bit. And really, what we wanted to see is how do you think? How do you think through a problem? What are the steps you take? You know, it's not so much that you know how to do it as much as, let's say, you explain how a company might use GPT or Claude to generate product descriptions, how that might help them optimize pricing strategies, and how maybe customer feedback could then be collected and analyzed to look for new products to develop. You don't have to have that personal experience to be able to think through these scenario-based business value use cases that you can present in a hypothetical scenario. And lastly, think about how generative AI is really disrupting all the industries, especially data science, and how in areas like pharma, they're using it to, really create the molecules for all of our new drugs that are coming out, do all of the research trial cohort grouping of patients that would make, for these drugs even, streamlining processes around financial services and how technology is helping, within the crypto currency arena. I mean, you could find interesting pivots that you want to land on, but I think if you keep a tenet of ethical AI or responsible AI and regulatory landscape and how that is shifting sort of at your underpinning, it'll really show an elevated level of ability to answer the questions in 2025. I really hope this has helped you prepare for your interview, and reach out to me anytime by subscribing to my channel, or you can always hit me up on GitHub. I have over 200 repositories out there. It's at Annielytics, Annielytix. I will highlight it in the description, and have a great day.
Annielytics.